Hello, and welcome to another Scudetto Euro special. Italy leave it late against Austria, but take a valuable lesson in suffering in the process. We swap notes on Freddy Church and controlling the ball with your face, before handing over to our Belgian equivalents for a scouting report. All that plus civilised beers and a disgruntled parent in this episode of Scudetto. Hello Azzurri fan. The squad is very happy and honestly a little bit relieved to still be here. As our regular listeners will know, we are podcasting this tournament for as long as Italy stay in it. And I have to admit, they did have us a bit worried for a second there when Austria took them into overtime. So we'll be reliving that nervousness shortly. And then we'll be previewing the Belgian game. And to help us out with that, we've got a very special guest. That's Joris from the Belgian Football Podcast. He's going to be giving us a scouting report. So do stick around for that. But first of all, let's catch up with the squad. Kenny, how are you getting on?
I'm doing well, Oscar. Thanks. Congratulations are in order. Your fellow countrymen managed to make it through a rather tough encounter yesterday. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for that. I did enjoy it. I was actually playing football during the second half, so that was kind of, we had roll-on, roll-off subs, so I was just kind of checking my phone every time I came off. And I have to admit, I was celebrating on the sidelines. But when you first said you were going to congratulate me, then I thought you were going to congratulate me on my new microphone. Hopefully listeners will notice I sound a bit clearer than usual. Yeah,
it is a thing of beauty to behold on our webcams here.
We've been getting a lot of emails about the quality of your sound, so it's it's refreshing to hear you now.
Yeah, it was funded by our new sponsor. No, there's no new sponsor. Please do get in touch with us if you want to sponsor this podcast. How about you, Boaz? How's your week been?
My week's been very football-filled and very hot, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think many people can relate to that this week. And what have you got to drink? Have you cracked into one of your many IPAs this week?
Yeah, I'm keeping all the exotic and weird flavored beers for when we start up at the new season. But I'm having a Hordaland Kveik IPA right now, and I'm convinced that they're just sticking random words in front of IPA.
Where's that beer from?
So it kind of has a Nordic name, your region, but then it's from Thornbridge, which I presume is a British brewery.
Yeah, speaking of beers of uncertain origin, I've got something that's from a Finnish brewery. But it's called a Mississippi beer, a steam IPA, and it's got an American flag on it. So
again, what is steam IPA? Someone explain this to me.
I don't know. It's got a picture of a steamship on it. It tastes a bit like kind of molasses or something. It's quite sweet, but kind of tastes like it's quite dark in color. Can't actually see it because it's in a can, but yeah, quite enjoying it so far. And Kenny, we didn't do your beer, so tell us what you've got.
Yeah, I've had this one on the podcast before, but not during the Euros. In honor of Harry Kane from Tottenham scoring his first goal of the Euros, I've got myself a beer from Tottenham. It's my favorite, really, Beavertown Neck Oil Session IPA.
It's very fair-minded of you to celebrate his success in an England shirt. Applaud you for that. Right, let's talk about what this podcast is about, which is Italian football. So, starting with the previous game, they had us worried, didn't they? We have to give credit to Fabian, our previous guest, for saying that it could be a close game, and they really made it difficult all the way to extra time. Kenny, you were screaming for Chiesa to come on, and when he did, kind of made the difference. Were you in discussions with Mancini's backroom staff?
To be honest, I think probably most of Italy was. I should prelude this by saying that I am a big Berardi fan, and I think that Berardi has been great throughout this tournament. But unfortunately, he was one of the many players that wasn't really doing it on the night, as it were. And Italy quite obviously struggling for goals. It just seemed like the obvious answer. Chiesa gives something a little bit different. He's, I believe, one of the fastest players at these Euros. I think he came in somewhere like 10th or something on the scale. Yeah, and to be honest, it did make all the difference, and he's impressed every time he's come on. I did also, I think, in that same WhatsApp group, call the Pessinator for the one who would score the winner, and got that one right as well. But sadly, did not play the lottery on that night. So unfortunately, still just as poor as I was then.
You didn't put a lumpy on it, unfortunately. Otherwise, we wouldn't need a sponsor. Yeah, Boaz. Ed, did you place any bets on this game?
Unfortunately, betting in Israel is much harder than... fortunately, betting in Israel is much harder than it is in the UK, and so my football betting has gone down dramatically since I moved here.
Same here, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so my betting has gone down dramatically, but I wanted to say that actually I think that the timing of the sub for both Chiesa and Pessina was spot on from Mancini. Yes, he could have brought them on a little bit earlier and maybe tried to win the game in the 90, but considering this is a tournament and there's extra time to be taken into consideration, and to bring on a player of such impact, or actually players of such impact, really kind of threw Austria's game plan a little bit out of the window. You mentioned the Pessinator there earlier, and he had also a big role to play in Chiesa's goal. He drags Alaba, who was imperious throughout the game. He drags him out of position, giving Chiesa that extra moment. Of course, Chiesa's stop with his nose is not the easiest of stops, but
that was really impressive control, actually, wasn't it? I think if he'd controlled it any other way, he would have struggled to get the same trajectory.
And you have to say, it's possible that another player in that position would have tried something different, or would not quite have managed to pull off such a play. So credit to him. While we're speaking about Chiesa, we have to credit him for his incredible English that he's been showcasing throughout this tournament. Probably he went to some private school in Florence when his father was a professional. Some of us
maybe just watched a lot of videos online.
We know the circuit. Some of us, the international. I was
just going to say, it would be in character to watch a lot of videos for Mr.
Yeah. No, that would be Pessina.
Are we not talking about Pessina?
We're talking about Chiesa. Yeah, we're talking about Chiesa's English.
Freddy Church. Freddy Church has great English.
But Freddy Church did go to the International School of Florence for 7 years, according to an interview he did with the Gazzetta about 6 years. Well, maybe not 6 years ago, but 4 or 5 years ago, quite some time ago. So perhaps, no surprises. Boaz and I actually went to the similar type of establishments in Italy.
Were they your rivals in the sort of regional football tournament?
We don't even consider Florence on the circuit. It's Rome, Milan, and sometimes Trieste.
Okay, so good insight into school football in the 90s.
But yeah, getting back to the Italy game, actually, I think there's been quite a lot of negativity in Italy following this result, saying basically, I know one of the radio phone-ins that I listen to quite frequently, there are people calling in saying that Italy have found their level and that, they're getting carried away with themselves before the tournament. And the thing is that, yes, this was a game in which Italy, undoubtedly the level dipped a little bit, and we have to give credit to Austria for that as well, because they were absolutely fantastic. But also that it's very rare that you will see a national team go through an entire tournament without having a dip at some point. We remember the Italy-Australia game in the World Cup that they went on to win, where they very nearly got knocked out at a similar stage. So I don't really think this tells us anything about Italy's chances. Undoubtedly, they need to play better than that against Belgium to stand a chance of going through. But yeah, it shows another side, doesn't it? It shows that they can dig in and get a result. And also it shows that Mancini can make substitutions that will turn a game around. And that is definitely going to be vital as the tournament goes on.
Yeah. We'd been kind of laying into pundits for classifying Italy as a very defensive team that just likes to soak up the pressure. But they did really show they do still have that side to their game of just being able to kind of suffer through periods of intense pressure. And yes, maybe that shouldn't have been happening against Austria, but it's something that's important, could be important later in the tournament as well.
And of course, Italy went on to break their unbeaten minutes record as well in this phase. Austria's goal, of course, came in extra time, so Italy were able to add another 113 minutes to this incredible run. And it was a little bit of a cheap goal to concede, if we have to be honest. To be beaten on the front post with a number of players around the guy who scored was a little bit disappointing. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe finally not thinking about this incredible record and just going out and playing your natural game will benefit the team. And another thing is we kind of joked on our last episode that this has been an easy ride, let's say, and that Italy are not used to coasting through the groups and having a good time out of it. I tweeted during the game in Italian, but that it's not, you're not watching the national team if you're not suffering. And in a way, it's kind of good to revert to form and show that this Italy bunch are not just a bunch of fancy Dans who like to play progressive football, but that they can also mix it with their opponents.
Honestly, Buzz, I'd been quite enjoying, since I've been following Italy, since we've started this podcast, supporting a team where you didn't have to suffer whilst watching them. And watching them against Austria just reverted to what I know of watching football. So it's a bit disappointing, but it's also familiarly satisfying.
And touching on your disappointment, I think a lot of us are often very critical of VAR, and a lot of people always feel that it kind of stops the game is stop-start, and it's not natural. But my God, as an Italian football fan, I love VAR. Those 2 goals in 3-4 years ago would have been given, and Italy would have been knocked out, and there would have been recriminations, and we would have been crazy. And instead, here we are talking about yet another victory, and it's fine margins. And on another day, Austria might have got those goals, but they didn't, and Italy were able to capitalize.
Yeah, I guess indeed we have to speak about that Arnautovic goal, because probably that would have been a really tough situation for Italy to come back from. So yeah, saved by the gods. But to use a footballing cliche, as I'm prone to every now and again, you need a bit of luck to challenge for these things. But yeah, I understand he's bound for Bologna, so that would be interesting to see him in Serie A next season.
Of course, he's a man who has a Champions League tattoo, having never played a minute in the Inter Champions League victory that he played in. And Jose Mourinho has some great quotes about him when they arrived. Apparently he claimed that he was better than Milito and Eto'o and all the other strikers that were there. Just play me, man. Boss, just play me.
Yeah, Fabian and I were speaking about him last week in the build-up, and just how he's erratic both on and off the pitch. You just never really know if he's going to play, if he's going to have a racist outburst at someone. It wasn't racist. He clarified after, without being prompted, that it wasn't racist. So definitely wasn't racist. But yeah, certainly an erratic personality. And speaking of which, sorry, have you got something to add, Buzz?
Kenny touched on a few disappointing performances, and I'd be remiss without touching on one of the players who's probably frustrated me the most in this tournament, and that is the beautiful man that is Ciro Immobile up front. I'm a big fan of his at Lazio when Simone Inzaghi had the whole team playing towards to get Immobile in goal-scoring situations. But his matches for Italy, leaving the goals aside in the group, have been very frustrating. And this last one in particular, it seemed like he was almost unable to control the ball. He was slowing down the play. I texted you guys in the halftime saying that the only golden boot he's coming close to in this tournament is if his dog will piss on his shoes.
Yeah, there were some Gazzetta stats actually today, which Buzz you pressed me to mention during the pod. But one of them was in fact the comparison between Lukaku and Immobile, and the stats show actually that Italy, amazingly, really, when you consider the reputation Belgium have created far more chances, have had far more shots on goal than Belgium have. It's 23-17 throughout the tournament. Shots in total 41-15. And I guess the Lukaku and Immobile stat that I was talking about that kind of is indicative of where the issue lies is that Lukaku has converted 50% of the chances that he's received, whereas Immobile has converted 20%. So hopefully he gets a bit sharper as the tournament goes on, and we can put this whole who's Italy's number 9 to bed.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kenny. And that is a perfect segue to the Belgium game. Italy, of course, facing Belgium on Friday night in the quarterfinal. It's in the Allianz Arena. And let's listen to our scouting report first. It's from Joris at the Belgian Football Podcast.
Belgium's tournaments is a bit of a rocky one so far, but ultimately without many surprises since they have won every game so far and conceded only 1 goal along the way. In the group stages, this was expected, 3 wins out of 3 against Finland, Denmark and Russia. But more importantly, for the team spirit, I guess all outfield players in the squad even got some playing time. Not going as far as even switching the goalkeeper, I suppose, but still a nice thing to keep everyone motivated. The worries before the tournament are still there. How is the defense holding up? Although they faced and conquered a real first test against Portugal, they really had a good game there. Yeah. So in general, I guess it isn't as pretty as it used to be. I guess Belgium moved a bit more to a more realistic style of play instead of the more romanticized style of play that they were playing in the World Cup in 2018. I do expect Belgium to line up against Italy more or less in the same way as they did against Portugal, lying a bit deeper, because the defense is still the main worry. The aging defense, are they still fast enough? Do they have enough speed? Are they versatile and mobile enough, basically, to face strong opponents? Against Portugal, it worked really well with lying a bit deeper than usual, and I expect this to be the case again against the versatile and dynamic attackers that Italy holds, to give them less space to run in behind the defense. For the rest, well, has been the case all tournament. Everything will depend on the fitness of some key players, and in this case, obviously, Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard. Regardless of names, the setup will most likely be the hybrid 4-3-3 or 3-5-2 that Belgium has been playing for a few years now, especially since, both this defense lying deep is an option and is easier to execute like this. And it could be an interesting one against Italy with its more compact play, while Belgium, as always, will focus on the wings, which should be an interesting fight and could decide the game. And I guess they're also with lying deeper, with the defending deeper, they might also be able to find the space themselves in the back of Spinazzola, who's having an incredible tournament, of course, offensively, but maybe there's something that they can do on the counter-attack there if they execute their counters a lot better than they did against Portugal, where they were lacking a lot in that. So if everything goes well from Belgian perspective and everyone gets fit in time, I don't really expect any changes. But if there are, and it looks like at least one change will be happening, whichever one will be of Kevin Werner or Eden Hazard, we don't know yet. Nobody knows. And I think they will try to keep up that smoke screen for as long as possible. But if they are not fit, Leandro Trossard and Jeremy Doku could make a start, or otherwise get on the pitch as a sub later on. Trossard is in his style the closest match to Eden Hazard, not at the same level in any sense, but he also has these dribbling movements and these short turns like that we all love as a football fan, at least from Eden Hazard. And 19-year-old Jeremy Doku is a speed rocket with really good and dribbling skills as well. But he needs to increase his efficiency a bit. But I do really see him getting on in case Italy would have the lead later on in the game, or if Belgium is not having the lead, to make the difference, because he can really wreak havoc if he has his good day. And then, we hope that his efficiency will lead into an assist, or that he will cover his lack of efficiency this time and improves in that. It's an aspect that he needs to improve on, but he slowly is as well. So we're hopeful for that. Regarding Dries Mertens, well, and also the timing of this question about Dries Mertens is important. A few years ago, he was definitely the most loved Red Devil because of, and I'm not kidding here, his cute appearance, which made a lot of the people that are not really interested in football but do follow the national team fall in love with him. But nowadays, even there are more critics because, to be honest, he does not really have the level anymore which you could clearly see against Portugal. Not the level that the Red Devils need and want in these stages of a tournament, at least. When he came on, and of course he had to replace Kevin De Bruyne, which is a terrible task. But yeah, it really didn't work that well. Well, and for the game against Italy, between Italy and Belgium, I would say it's a 50-50 really. Since there's so many tactical things and so many injury related issues that we don't know yet, that could flip the coin one way or the other. And of course, there's all the whole factor of luck that is the most important one in football. But for the tournament, in case the coin would flip Belgium's way, it's still also difficult to tell since so many things hinge on these injuries, and by then maybe suspensions. And also just every team that's still in the tournament has shown that it can have a really good game, which can be the downfall of any other team, whether it be a favorite team or an outsider. While also every team has shown weaknesses in other games. To take the case of Belgium, their game against Denmark was, well, they got really lucky, despite, of course, also bringing in the class there that can make the difference. And that's why it's difficult to say. So I guess in every game, it's a 50-50 chance. It's a cliche to say, I guess. But given the half that both Italy and Belgium are in, that I think it's a fair thing to say. I think actually this would go for both teams. If Italy would progress, I guess it would be the same. And yeah, for the confidence for the game itself, we know that Italy has not lost in almost 3 years now. So that's quite an impressive streak, and we hope that Belgium can stop this. Belgium, on the other hand, has scored a goal every game since that dreadful semi-final loss against France in the World Cup. So at least, hopefully, that it will be some entertaining game, and actually a bit more entertaining than the one against Portugal. And let's see how it goes. May the best one win.
Thanks again to Joris for that. Very interesting. Kenny, Joris gives it a 50% chance, or a 50-50, he said. What do you make of that? Do you think 50-50 is fair? How do you think Italy will fare against a team that lines up like Joris is suggesting that Belgium might?
Yeah, I think 50-50 is fair. And if you're looking at the world rankings and probably people's expectations of Italy coming into the tournament, possibly even generous towards Italy, Belgium are obviously an incredible side, and especially if they've got their full strength, really, really hard to stop. But obviously that is the big question mark. I know they're playing the cards close to their chest, but the questions over De Bruyne and Hazard will probably be key to this. But I think one of the things that I thought was very interesting about what Joris said was about how he expects Belgium to play deep again, as they did in the game against Portugal. That I think could be a problem for Italy, because I think that's kind of where Italy's problems against Austria and even Wales, when Wales went down to 10 men, they, as you would expect them to, they kind of dug in and sat deep, tried to keep the goal difference respectable, knowing that it would likely get them through. And Italy really struggled with that. So that could actually be something that becomes a little bit of a problem. Having said that, I would hope to see Chiesa start. And if he does, then perhaps I think that his pace could bring something different. And obviously, we've spoken about Italy's lack of ability to create chances. Well, if chances are going to be even fewer and far between, then Chiesa, to be honest, at this moment, is a man that you want on the field, because he's more likely to take them than not.
Yeah, and but as a familiar situation for you, worrying about what Romelu Lukaku's going to be doing at the weekend, how are you feeling about it?
So, having watched the Portugal game for Belgium, I felt that actually Big Rom didn't have the best performance of his career. He was getting a little bit frustrated. He was maybe trying to go it alone a few times too many when there was possibly a better option to pass to. I think this whole notion of him declaring to the world that he's a elite striker, which for the record I think he is, has kind of added extra pressure on him, and maybe that's what drives him. But in this game, particularly in particular, it felt like maybe he was trying a little bit too hard. And yet, despite me saying that he's had a terrible game by his standards, he still ran Pepe and Ruben Diaz ragged. They were just literally bouncing off him. They really didn't know what to invent to stop him, including all the dirty tricks in the book. And so obviously he's a formidable talent, and he's not the only player who's outstanding in the team. Obviously they have their current Eden Hazard and De Bruyne dilemmas, but there's plenty of players with good feet in that midfield. Perhaps their defense is where they can be gotten at. I know you guys have a little bit of a soft spot for Vermaelen, having played for Arsenal, but I'm pretty sure that he plies his trade in Japan, of all places, right now. So I'm not sure he's the most solid option. And Alderweireld is also getting on with his age. So a young and propulsive Italy side might be just what it takes to break this defense down. And another point is that Belgium got only 6 shots on target, 6 shots in total against Portugal. That's quite a measly return, and the Italy defense is going to pull even dirtier tricks out of its book to stop shots from happening.
And how about the Italy defense? How do you think they're going to deal with Lukaku? I mean, obviously they know the threat, like they play against him a couple of times this season.
Boaz mentioned the dark arts, and master of the dark arts, Chiellini is expected to be back for this one. The latest indications are that he trained with the team today, and that he's likely to start. So maybe we'll see more of them.
And of course, the Azzurri also have Bastoni, who trains with Romelu Lukaku week in, week out, and presumably he's marked him plenty of times in training, and should he get on, he will be a useful addition. But in the worst case, he can tell whoever is playing what Romelu likes to do.
Yeah, very good point. And just focusing on the Italy starting lineup for a second, a debate that's been kind of raging in the Italian media has been around the central midfielder. Obviously, we're big fans of Locatelli on this podcast. Who do you think that he's going to go with to start again? Is it going to be Locatelli, or is it more likely to be Marco Verratti that gets in?
Well, it's I'm not sure it's been raging, but it's certainly an area of debate. Verratti again was another player who, his return was hotly anticipated. His first game back was great against Wales, but to be honest, in the Austria game, my personal view is he was just the wrong player for that game. He's a bit more tenacious than Locatelli. He's a very, very classy footballer, but he also has that element to his game, the bite. And Locatelli perhaps is more of a sort of classic regista type, really. And I think perhaps in that game against Austria, a player like Locatelli would have been better. Having said that, just because Verratti didn't have the best game in the last one doesn't mean that I don't think that he's still the right person. I think for this game, where you've got the attacking options that Belgium have at their disposal, I think probably Verratti is going to be the better option in this game. And that's not to take anything away from Locatelli. It's just I think with hindsight, Captain Hindsight over here, telling Mancini perhaps he should have started Locatelli in the last one. I expect him to start Verratti again in the next one, and I think that would be the right decision.
Yeah, maybe Locatelli could come on and make an impact. What do you think, Buzz?
I think a part of the reason Verratti played in the Austria game was probably to get him a little bit more match fit. And I think that I agree with Kenny that possibly a slightly more creative player, and not that Verratti is not creative, but less tenacious, would have served Italy better in the Austria game. But in this Belgian game, where their midfield is notoriously strong and fast and also kind of tenacious, as we said, I think Verratti is a perfect fit. And something that shouldn't go unmentioned is that with Verratti by his side, Jorginho is able to do a lot of things differently, and he's able to really bring his best football out. And he's currently essential to this Italy squad. And as such, I think that I would go with Verratti, despite his not stellar performance against Austria.
Yeah, and he's not hugely dissimilar to N'Golo Kante in style, Verratti, really. And obviously, for the period that De Bruyne was on the field for that Champions League final, that pairing did a fairly good job of stemming the Manchester City attack, which obviously relies very heavily on De Bruyne. So, I mean, there's kind of proof there from previous form, really.
Hoping for a repeat of that performance.
Absolutely.
Suit Italy down to the ground. Anyway, yeah, really, really looking forward to this game. It's the late Friday night kickoff as well. So, yeah, perfect weekend.
I'm already having sleepless nights.
We should just move on. And it seems like Italy will be taking the knee before this game, but there has been some controversy around this topic. And Italy's public statement has been, to say the least, slightly confused by us, hasn't it?
For a side who've only conceded one goal throughout this tournament, this was a spectacular own goal from the Azzurri and the Fiorentina. Essentially, this is kind of a long-running affair where Bonucci earlier in the season kind of released some ill-fitting statements about why he won't be leaning and why he doesn't really agree with the whole thing, but he will kind of support racism in another way. And just the other day, Chiellini, the captain, was also quoted as saying that we will be kneeling out of solidarity with our opponents, not for the campaign itself, which we don't share. As the Austrian players didn't kneel in the last game, we remain standing too. And this is a real cop-out from Italy as a whole, because if you're kneeling because you don't support the statement, but you're kind of doing it because the other team is doing it, then you really don't have any willpower, or you're not making much of a statement yourself. And really, my big criticism goes to the Fiorentina, who should have released a statement a long time ago and kind of standardized whatever the Italy players do, whether it's kneeling or not. Right now, it's a real hodgepodge of ideas and mismatched political opinions, and the message boards in Italy are going crazy about the pros and cons of doing it, when really it's just a message of solidarity with your fellow black countrymen, of which there are quite a lot of Italians. So I think this whole stance is kind of has a sour taste to it.
Yeah, it's not the clearest stance, is it, Kenny? And yeah, just seems like a bit of appeasement, really, when they pick and choose which opponents they kneel with.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for starters, my stance all along on this has been that by not taking the knee, you're making more of a statement than you are by taking the knee. As Boaz said before we recorded, it's the simplest, lowest effort thing that you can do just to pay respect. And I have to say that Chiellini's comments are a joke, really. To say that taking the knee, you don't agree with the statement or whatever. To me, this is not about a political movement. As Boaz said, it's about showing solidarity. And in the sporting context, obviously, this all was initiated with Colin Kaepernick and the NFL doing this basically to protest against the police treatment of black people in the States. And you can take the knee out of solidarity with that message, and to be honest, I don't see who wouldn't. So yeah, just massive cop out, really, really disappointing all round, to be honest. Yeah, don't really have much more to add than that.
This of course follows the joke that was the Wales game, where just 5 Italy players took the knee when the whole Wales squad did. And I think in that game especially, the players didn't really know what to do, and some of them kind of spontaneously did it, others didn't. And again, a unified message from the coach, from whoever runs the federation, even from the president. It's such a simple statement, and we're here talking about it when we really should just be talking about football. But oftentimes sportsmen and footballers put us in a position where we have to discuss off the field antics as well. You know what? The Living La Vida Loca challenge. I'm giving it here.
Yeah, and you say like it shouldn't be left up to the players, which to a point I can agree with, but it's not even really that, is it? Because I feel like the England policy has been led by the players, and that's fine. But they've sat down together as a group, come up with a policy. Presumably, it's been approved by the FA at some point, but they've got a policy and then they all agree on it and they all stick to it as a team. And that's clearly not happened with Italy. So I think that's maybe not the root of the problem, but it's what leads to this kind of half-hearted display, which is just embarrassing.
I agree.
Anyway, let's move on from that. I think we've said everything we need to say, and just kind of round up what's been going on away from the Euros quickly. Vincenzo Italiano, or Vinny Italian as we like to call him, has been confirmed to Fiorentina. We discussed that last week. Our boy Spinazzola has been obviously impressing the big boys in Europe in this tournament. He's attracting interest from Barcelona and PSG. Also, Mario Rui is reportedly moving from Napoli to Galatasaray, a fee of 5 million euros being reported there. And another story that we covered earlier in the season, the FIGC has told Claudio Lotito that he has until Saturday to sell Salernitana, obviously the newly promoted side. Otherwise, they could be excluded from Serie A and Benevento would return to the top flight. Obviously, it's because he also owns Lazio and there's a rule against owning two teams that are in direct competition. So, yeah, just a few days. I mean, if you've got a few quid lying around, you probably put in a credible bid for his football club. What else should we talk? Oh, yeah, the Primavera final. Empoli have beaten Atalanta 5-3. It's under 19s, isn't it, Primavera? You guys that played in the youth system, yeah, under 19s. And we've talked about Inter's liquidity issues before on this podcast. There's an effort by Inter fans to crowdfund an equity investment into the club, including some celebrities. It's an interesting approach to the problem. Not sure how the owners and new private equity investors would respond to that kind of initiative, but we'll keep an eye on that for you and let you know. And finally, looks like Mourinho could be bringing one of his old mates, Rui Patricio, to Roma. Could be an interesting addition to that squad. I think that's all we had to round up.
Interesting addition. Yet another average goalkeeper for Roma when it's a problem position.
Yeah, I didn't want to lay into him, but I don't really see how he's a tier above either Paul Lopez or Morante. Well, I guess we will maybe be proven wrong. Look forward to watching him anyway. Anyway, let's move on to the honourables and dishonourable mentions. And Kenny, you wanted to kick us off with a nice one that paints Serie A in a positive light.
Yeah, this is an honourable mention for Serie A itself. Because with 30 goals scored in this tournament by players based in Serie A, the league has equaled the record set by the Premier League in 2016 for contributing most goals to a Euros. So, yeah, let's hear it for Serie A.
And Boaz, we mentioned already Spinazzola today, but you want to give him another honourable mention?
Yeah, Leonardo Beep Beep Spinazzola. Who was recorded in this Euro running at 33.8 kilometers an hour and thus is the fastest player in the tournament. I was quite surprised by that because he's obviously a very skillful player as well, but clearly he has other feathers in his bow, and what a fantastic stat.
Yeah, I wanted to give this is down as an honourable. I think it's probably should be a dishonourable, although not to Victor Osimhen, but to whoever has stolen the money for his transfer. Don't have the full details on this story, but it seems like some of the money that was
70
paid
million.
70 million. I think this article says 50 million has gone missing.
Maybe it's 50 million pounds versus 70 million euros.
Okay. Well, anyway, a substantial amount of money has gone missing. I mean, it could potentially have been invested into another business that one of the previous owners was running. That's unproven at this point allegation by one of the articles I was reading about it. Just pretty funny. Yeah, not much more to say about that one. We obviously enjoyed the video of Victor Osimhen throwing around dollar bills in a club over Christmas.
Maybe he took the money and that's how he's spending it.
One can only speculate. Anyway, for something completely different, Baz, we want to talk about a bromance amongst the coaching staff of the Azzurri.
Yeah, this is an honourable mention for the beautiful images of Gianluca Vialli and Mancini hugging after both goals for the Azzurri. Just fantastic scenes, but even more wonderful when you consider that the entire backroom staff for the Italy setup is pretty much made of ex-Sampdoria players. There's Ivani, who we joked about a few months ago that he looked kind of like Bob Dylan, like a Bob Dylan impersonator. There's Tino Lombardo that fans of Crystal Palace may remember. There's a few others. Of course, there's De Rossi as well, who's kind of bossing things. So it's generally a likable Italy setup, and even a very likable backroom staff that maybe should have achieved a lot more with that Sampdoria side back in the early 90s. And some of them definitely did go on to achieve great stuff with various other clubs. So kudos to their ongoing friendship and the fact that they're colleagues, but they're friends above all.
Yeah, and also it has to be pointed out as well the challenging time that Vialli's had fighting, I believe it was pancreatic cancer that he's had just over the last few years. So yeah, just really touching, really, to see two old friends enjoying the glory like that on the highest stage.
Yeah, even if they did leave him behind on the team bus.
Yeah, that was mean.
That was mean. Speaking of mean, we've been a bit mean to old Alvaro Morata recently. So, Kenny, do you want to give him an honourable and make up for it?
I will gladly give Alvaro Morata an honourable. We all know that Alvaro Morata is a listener to the show and has been chasing all of the awards out there. The Living La Vida Loca challenge, the now named Morata challenge, which used to be the Gagliardini challenge. Obviously, Morata is obviously a very busy man and doesn't always get to the end of the show with the honourable mentions section, and has only recently discovered that someone on the podcast has been handing out honourables for great goals, honourable mentions for great goals, and he absolutely gets one for his goal for Spain against Croatia. Just a wonderful first touch, and absolutely hammered it in Rebic style. So yeah, definite honourable mention, and I think made the sweeter for him given the fact that all of Europe has basically been making jokes at his expense throughout this because of some what is fairly, quite fair to say, has been some awful finishing. But what a nice, sweet way to shut up the critics.
It was a lovely goal and made all the better by the fact that he shanked a couple in that exact game previously. Buzz, you've got an honourable for Inter Women's new coach.
Yeah, Inter Femminile have just announced the signing of Rita Guarino, who won the last 4 Femminile championships with Juventus. Clearly, they noticed that by bringing in former Juventus coaches, they can achieve success, and so they've done the same for their women's side. And by all accounts, she's one of the best female coaches out there. And this again goes back to an old statement that I've made, that it seems like Italian clubs are investing more into their women's setup, and that's just great news for the game.
Indeed. And just before we move on from this, I wanted to give a couple more honourables to its Italian national team players. Firstly, for Belotti, substitute on as a striker, decided to just play like a wrecking ball, smashing into absolutely everyone, slide tackling, a heroic, if slightly hilarious performance. And also, because I know Boaz will not give this man an honourable mention, we have to give one to Donnarumma for that save that he made at 2-0 in the Austria game from Gregoric. Could have made the difference if that one didn't go in. It was full extension, palms it out. Boaz, you're muted, but I can see you're making faces. He deserves an honourable mention.
Who?
Yeah, can't convince you to acknowledge him even as a person after all those years of service. Anyway, you can give a dishonourable to somebody to just take your anger out on De Ligt.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like Holland were coasting in their game against the Czech Republic, and they also had a one-on-one chance that if that player played for a Serie A side, I would definitely have given him a dishonourable because it was criminal. But Matthijs de Ligt, for some reason, slipped and decided to to touch the ball with his hand, which was, maybe he did it by mistake, maybe he did it on purpose. Either way, he cost his nation dearly. Kenny correctly brought up that De Ligt had 3 or 4 handball touches this season, some of which were given, some that weren't. maybe he needs to refine that part of his game.
Yeah, he needs to practice a natural position for his hands, maybe.
Or play volleyball.
That's another solution, yeah. We haven't had many dishonourables this week, but this one counts for at least 3. Kenny, you want to finish us off with an excellent dishonourable?
Yeah, I thought we should go out in style with a dishonourable mention for the mother of Juventus and France star Rabiot, Veronique Rabiot, who, as well as being his mother, obviously, is his agent, I believe, who didn't take too well to France going out to Switzerland, and apparently launched into a torrent of abuse against some of the families of the French stars, in particular Mbappe's family and Pogba's family. It was widely reported that she was hurling abuse at Mbappe, saying that he was arrogant. But apparently, there's quite a nice quote here from L'Equipe, which says that she said, "It is embarrassing how he struck that. For a player of his level, he hit it too lightly. I hope you're going to scold him," which is a particularly strong quote. But then also, unhappy with, not happy with just laying into, Europe's golden boy of the moment. She also apparently laid into Pogba's family for Pogba giving the ball away in what turned out to be the build-up to Switzerland's late equalizer. So yeah, I mean, just absolute scenes in the stands by the sounds of it, and I really wish I could have been there.
Yeah, that is excellent. And with constructive criticism like that, maybe she could find a job in Roma's coaching staff, for example. I think she'd fit right in.
She could apply for the Spurs manager job.
I think that vacancy may now be filled. Anyway, that is all we've got time for on this podcast. If you don't already, please do subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your audio. We'll speak to you again, hopefully after this weekend's game. Until then, thanks for listening. Enjoy the Euros.
Che sta decretando lo scudetto del Milan in questo preciso istante. Finita! La Juventus è campione d'Italia. Questa data, il 6 maggio. Del Bicico, la Roma è campione d'Italia per la stagione 2000-2001.